1990 is a really good year for cinema, I think, and I thought I would bring you my top 10 movies of that year. So let's get into it. Number 10 is Tremors. This is a film I watched quite a lot when I was a kid with my brothers. I found it hilarious. It was also quite action-packed. Kevin Bacon was really good in it, really funny. I made it no secret, I'm a big fan of Critters. I think this has a very similar vibe in the sense that it marries up horror with comedy and action, and it's just one of those films that is very easy to watch. Number 9 is Pacific Heights. This is a film in which we get to see Michael Keaton playing a psychotic next-door neighbor. He moves in with this couple, kind of takes their spare flat, they rent it to him, but then he turns out to be the tenant from hell. It's not been released on DVD or Blu-ray over here in the UK. It seems to be quite hard to track down, to be honest, but I would love to get hold of a copy. It's a really good film, one of those kind of early 90s thrillers that were knocking about quite a lot at the time. You know, Silence of the Lambs, Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Internal Affairs, which I think was released in 1990 as well. There was a lot of those movies around in the 90s where you just kind of have a suburban kind of setting in which some psychopathic nut job would just, cause problems for the main characters. This was one of the better ones, certainly one of the ones that stood out more for me, one of the ones that I watched more repeatedly. Number 8 is Back to the Future Part 3. Just a really good entry and a good final cap to the trilogy. I like the fact that they go way back to Western times. It's basically a sci-fi Western movie. It's got all the charm that the previous two movies had. It's just that it has a slightly different, very different flavour to it because of the setting. Probably my second favourite of the three, with the first still being the best, but just perfect end to a really great trilogy. And number 7 is director Zhang Yimou's Judo. This is his second feature film, and it is really all about the contradictions of humanity. Good people can do bad things, bad people can do good things, and somewhere in between all that we need to be punished for our crimes. It's a very interesting slow burn drama that kind of looks at the intricacies of human nature. It's director Yimou on fine form. One of my favourite directors, it's got to be said, though I've not watched one of his movies for quite some time, although there was a period back there when I was just going on a bit of a Yimou binge, and he's an incredible filmmaker, and I think this film shows why. And number 6 is Blue Steel. This is directed by Catherine Bigelow and written by Eric Red, the same team that brought us Near Dark, one of the best vampire films ever made. This film plays almost like a werewolf movie. That's the subtext, really. If you go into this film and treat it like a werewolf movie, you've got this guy who has this experience where he ends up taking a gun, and it's almost this transformative experience in much the same way that becoming a werewolf is a transformative experience. It's just a lot more subtle. If you look at this film as though it was a werewolf movie, it works really well. You've got this central character played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays this cop. She's a female cop living in essentially a man's world, although they don't play that up so much as you would expect. If this film was made today, I think that would be the be-all and end-all of it, but it's really not. She just happens to be a really strong female character in a profession that is predominantly kind of filled with men. Catherine Bigelow, really great director. I would say this is one of her lesser works, but it's still a really great film, which is a testament to her as a filmmaker. Number 5 is Total Recall. This is Paul Verhoeven once again in the world of science fiction. I think a lot of people really love RoboCop. I'm not as big on RoboCop as a lot of people. I personally think Total Recall is a much better film. It's got a lot more going on in it, a lot of really great, wacky ideas, practical special effects that still hold up. They are a bit more obviously kind of effects work. You see them and they're like, yeah, you know, it's dated a bit, but the fact that it's physical kind of really just gives it that feeling that you can reach out and touch it. It just really works for me a lot better than, say, your more modern day kind of CGI fests that we tend to get these days. I just think it's a really good film. Great kind of character for Arnold Schwarzenegger to take on. One of his best roles, I think, within the action genre. Keeps you guessing, kind of flip-flops. You never know whether this guy is... Has he just lost the plot? Is he still in the world of Total Recall? Or it's just, yeah, it's a good, intelligent action sci-fi movie. Number 4 for me is Goodfellas. Now, I've only seen Goodfellas once, I think. So I am definitely due a rewatch. Of all the films on this top 10, this is the one that does stand the chance of going up, because I know a lot of people are big on Goodfellas. There's a lot of people who have it as their number 1 film of all time, not just 1990. So yeah, it's definitely one that is on my to-do list, is to rewatch. But based on my memories and feelings of it on that one watch that I had, it sits here at number 4. It is meticulously directed by Scorsese. It is brilliantly acted from the likes of Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, and particularly Joe Pesci. Very memorable. It gets a little bit too violent for my tastes. It's the kind of violence that if it was in a horror movie, I could probably stomach it more, because the horror movies with that kind of level of violence tend to be a bit more fantastical. So I think because this film is, well, for one, it's based on a true story, and two, it's very, very real. It feels like it's set within the real world. It means that the violence, when it hits, it does tend to hit harder. Beyond that, it's a real first-rate gangster drama that kind of follows the descent of someone who reached for the stars and then ultimately ends up with nothing. Number 3 for me is Dances with Wolves, a worthy winner, I personally think, of the Best Picture Oscar. I know a lot of people would say Goodfellas deserved it and this, that and the other, but yeah, I love Dances with Wolves. It's an epic. It's a really great Western. It's got incredible detail, attention to like period detail. It's a subject matter that is very close to the heart of Kevin Costner. This was very much a passion project for him. And you can see that passion is on screen in every frame. The cinematography is beautiful. Mary McDonnell offers really great support. I think she won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for this, or at the very least she was nominated. I think she won. But yeah, I really like her, and I just think this is one of Costner's best roles. It's a bit long, particularly if you go for the director's cut. I think like the director's cut's like 4 hours or something, but it's immersive. It's one of those films that immerses you into the world that it takes you. And number 2 is Miller's Crossing. For me, this is a contender for the best Coen Brothers movie. It's a gangster film, but it's like your 1930s kind of Prohibition era type gangster film. So you got those classic cars, the classic wardrobes with the fedora hats and the Tommy gun machine guns. I love that period. The dialogue in it is very kind of pulpy. It's like a pulp story from back in the day. And like I say, the Coen brothers are just on top form. Great performances all round. John Turturro is very memorable in it. Some real great intricate characters. Albert Finney is a standout as well. Yeah, I love the film. It's been a while since I've seen it. This is another one I do owe another watch. But yeah, for me, it's just, there's not a bum note in the entire film. But number 1 for me is Tim Burton's masterpiece. It is Edward Scissorhands. It is a story he came up with. And it's basically a modern day retelling of Beauty and the Beast with a bit of Frankenstein thrown in the mix to boot. It's just a really great, poignant story. about this creature, really, a creature of a man who is revealed to have more humanity than the human beings that he ends up living amongst. It's a beautiful story. It's beautiful to look at with some incredible visuals, some of Burton's best direction, a really heartfelt performance from Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder. It may be Burton's best film. I think it's Tim Burton's best film, probably. I obviously have a soft spot for his Batman films, but just from a technical standpoint, a filmmaking standpoint, I think this is probably his best work. So there you go. That is my top 10 of 1990. But why don't you let me know, one, what you think of my choices, but two, what is your top 10 of that year? Leave your choices and the rest of your comments down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.